standing in front of the speakers. Screens glow. That fire is real. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up now. Turn it up now. Let the truth cut. Let it heal. Whoa, yeah. Jimmy Lakey unleashed, just like the Lord intended. He'll say what you're scared to say. Every line unfiltered, unedited, talking DC, swamping power, politics, culture, Jesus' name. He might like that cigar, but he loves the lamb just the same. Jimmy Lakey unleashed. Turn it up and feel that flame. No fear, unafraid. Every idol gets named. Every lie, every shade goes down in holy flame. From the tent to your car, from your porch to the pew. He's calling out the darkness. Let the light run through. Jimmy Lakey unleashed. Hey, just like the Lord intended. He'll say what you're scared to say. Unfiltered, unedited, talking DC, swamping power, politics, culture, Jesus' name. He might like that cigar, but he loves the lamb just the same. Jimmy Lakey, only one filter. Turn it up and feel that flame.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir, Brother Leroy, Sister Gloria in the background, and all the other cast of characters. Thank you for the wonderful, rousing, not arousing, but rousing edition of the intro to the show. I was enjoying that one. I almost just stood up and kind of gave a little jig, but I decided not to because it would live in history if I ever decide to run for office. Well, not that I'm ever going to do that. But anyway, good to have all of you here on the show. It's Thursday, the 12th day of March, year of our Lord, 2026. Pleasured, pleased, and thrilled. If you knew the show, thousands of earballs listen to this show every day. Unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. Been in corporate radio for many years, 10 years with the iHeart Kingdom. Let's see, Cumulus, they just filed for bankruptcy, I heard. Salem, I've worked with all of them. Crawford, I've done all the big ones, all the small ones, and here I am, unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. I am my own program director, and it's much better that way. Glad to have you here on the program. It's the Lakey Unleashed streamcast, podcast, broadcast. Yes, we do all of it. Of course, you're watching the live version, possibly. Maybe you're watching, if you're not watching it live, you're watching a recorded live version, and some of you are just listening to the audio portion of the show, which can be a real treat for you because it's just my dulcet tones in your ears. And every once in a while, I try to go real low just so you'll know that it's a great show. So anyway, good to have all of you here on the program. I got a question of the day coming up. You don't want to miss that one. It has to do with the movie theaters. We'll talk about that in a moment before COVID. And I was always at the movie theater, but my son, we always had to watch the Marvel comic movies, and he got to pick. And then he went off to college, he had COVID, and all of these things I'd been to one in a long time. So we'll talk about movie theaters here in just a moment. There's a story, I read the headline, and it was one of those no crap Sherlock moments. You ever have that? Of course, I would not say the other phrase there for crap, but ever one of those stories you're like, I thought we already knew this. No, I really thought we already knew this, and I've got the wrong story cut into my column of my story here, but let me find it here. It's I thought we already knew that this was something that had happened, but Trump says Iran was linked to the USS Cole attack, and a federal judge also ruled that Trump's right and that it was complicit. And let me read the story to you. President Trump has repeatedly argued that the Iranian regime bears responsibility for the terrorist suicide bombing on the USS Cole in the year 2000. That would be 26 years ago. The president has gotten pushback in the press And they say Iran didn't do it. The USS Cole. Well, let's let all the media lapdogs and butt kissers out there know that Donald Trump is right again. In an oft-forgotten terror attack, Al Qaeda terrorists bombed the U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer, the USS Cole, in October of 2000, less than a year before 9/11. It killed 17 sailors and wounded dozen more. Abd al-Rahim Hussein Muhammad al-Nashiri, sounds like he's probably a Baptist, was a top associate of Osama bin Laden and alleged mastermind of the attack against the U.S. Navy ship that was parked off the coast of Yemen. And this summer, he's going to face a military trial at Guantanamo Bay for his role in the bombing. Trump has repeatedly cited that the attack in recent days is part of the U.S. justification for strikes, saying that the Iranian regime has been involved in plots for many, many years. And journalists are contending this is not true. But all these journalists that are fighting for the Iranian mullah's causes and all these journalists that are fighting for the narrative that Donald Trump's bad and Iran must be good now, in lawsuits brought in U.S. federal courts by victims and families for the bombing in the Gulf of Aden more than 2.5 decades ago, the Obama-appointed judge has repeatedly held that the Iranian regime is at least partly responsible for the suicide attack due to extensive assistance Iran provided to al-Qaeda back in the 1990s. So there's this headline that says, shocker, or to me it's a shocker, Iran was involved in the attack with the USS Cole. And I think most of us who follow news and have followed this remember this back in the day. We remember that this was right at the end of the Clinton administration. It was going into the W administration. And I remember I was just getting into talk radio at the time. And I remember going, why aren't we fighting back? Why don't we do some retaliation here? They can't get by with this. Well, they got by with it for 26 years. We pretty much did nothing to punish the Iranians or anybody who was involved in that. We kind of turned the other cheek, if you will. And any response that we gave was kind of limp-wristed. So fast forward 26 years, Donald Trump's reminding all of us who were following at the time that the USS Cole was attacked and men and women died and were injured in that attack against an American carrier. And the media, these young media types that don't have any lesson in history, research, or study, immediately say, Donald Trump said the USS Cole, he's got to be wrong. They immediately go to this position that the orange man is bad and he's making this up. And if anybody was a true journalist out there, they would know that that's not something you can question. It has been decided in courts and lawsuits, and there's people at Guantanamo Bay right now waiting to stand trial for the attack on the USS Cole. And they are Iranians. They have Iranian ties. And the judges in federal courts have found that the Iranians had to lost lawsuits brought by victims and families of the members of these servicemen that died in the USS Cole. So when I saw the headline, I said, "What is this about?" Now, why are we reading now that Iran was linked to the attack on the USS Cole back in the year 2000? And then I realized the reason we're reading it is because the media once again proves that they're a bunch of jackwagons and they don't deserve your attention. Listen, if you have any news source, local news reporter, local newspaper, if you saw it on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, wherever you saw it, if there was any reporter out there questioning Iranian involvement and trying to make Iran feel like they were not complicit in the USS Cole attack, then you should immediately know that that is a propaganda device. That is not a media device. That is not a product of information. That is a product of disinformation. That when the media has to report a story on the media, that the media has been trying to say that the USS Cole attack was not in part and parcel by responsible looping back to Iran, and then other media has to say, well, you're wrong on that. You just know that the media is all, let's just say, effed up out there, and you got to be very, very careful about who you watch in the news, because if they'll lie to you about the USS Cole because they hate Donald Trump that much, or they're that ignorant and that stupid, then either way, whatever the reason is, why in the world would you want to watch those news sources after all? All right, thousands of earballs will hear this show, see this show, and to be a part of this show throughout the day, here's what you got to know. You listen on the podcast version after this is done. It's vocals only, and it says Spotify, iHeart, etc., and all the podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, etc. A lot of you are watching it live on various and sundry platforms. Several Facebook big pages carry us out there on this. Twitter, X. You can share it out on Rumble and Twitter as well. We'd love to have you share it as you watch it, and glad to have you here on the program, whether you're watching live or in the future with a podcast or a repeat. Feel free to tell us you love us, because we love you. Some of you, most of you. All right, I got a question of the day. I want to get to my first guest of the morning here in just a second. Bruce DeTorres is going to be with us, but I may ask, I mentioned the movie theater. When was the last time you went to the movies? And I had to think about that. Now, over the Christmas break a couple of months ago and holiday, my son was home from college, and we discussed going to a couple of movies. I know Laura Carno and producer Chad were trying to get a time for us to go see the Melania movie in the theaters. That never, ever happened. And so I started thinking of this. I don't know. I used to go regularly with my son to the movies. That was kind of a thing that we did together from the time he was a wee tyke. I mean, I remember seeing the Cars movie, and I've seen all of them. And it's very rare that I get to go to a movie of my choosing and take my son. I usually let him take the lead on it. I will take the exception. I did take him to see the Clarence Thomas movie that came out a few years ago. I took him to see that. I thought it was inspirational. He enjoyed it. And then I also took him to see one called The Iron Claw, which was about the Von Erich wrestling family, that kind of a true dramatization of their lives and career and the deaths that happened. That was fascinating. And he was okay. The Von Erichs were somebody I grew up with watching wrestling as a kid, and I wanted to be a Von Erich. Though I was a Lakey, I just couldn't be. I thought The Iron Claw. It was a good movie. If you didn't see it, it's probably on Netflix or something. You should watch it. But those are the two movies I remember seeing last in the theater, and I don't think I've seen one since. And those been a few years ago. And so I've just asked you the question, with a new survey out that movie theaters are not necessarily drawing a big crowd anymore. Part of that was the COVID. And then I just want to know how many of you are going to the movies. The Oscars are this Sunday. Not that any of you care. I wouldn't care. And there's all these nominated films, but did you see any of them? According to a survey last summer, a little more than half of us said we had been going to the movie theater in the past year. Let me repeat that. 53% said they had been to the movie last year, in the last 12 months, to the actual theater. Age does seem to be a factor. 67% of younger adults say they had been. 39% of those over 65 had still gone to the movies. Domestic ticket sales have had a slow and steady recovery since 2020. Over $9 billion worth of tickets were sold last year, compared to $14 billion to $16 billion between during the 2000s up to through the 2010s. So what used to be a $14 to $16 billion ticketing industry last year was only at a $9 billion worth of tickets sold. And I started reading this with the Oscars coming up and all these shows that'll be nominated and win Oscars and all these speeches given that I won't watch. I have to ask you, when was the last time you went to a movie theater, and what did you see? I guess we could ask that one as well. All right, some of you are already jumping in. When the last time you went to the movie theater? Highway Living on the YouTube says, we haven't been to a theater since pre-COVID. No interest now, and nothing worthwhile produced in that many years, in my opinion. That's what IMO stands for, Delilah. RJ says, last time we went was about a month and a half ago, to see the Melania movie. Now, I was going to see that. That would have counted, but we couldn't get our crap together to go see it, and I'm a very busy person, and it just never made the calendar. Ray out on YouTube says, the last movie I watched at the theater was The Passion of Christ. Well, good Lord, that had to be 20 years ago, right? That was 15, at least 15. That was 2004, I think is when that was out. Ray hasn't been in a long time. Arloa says, we went to see the Melania movie, so not that long ago. So let me ask you, if before the Melania movie, what did you go see, Arloa? All of you that went to see Melania, RJ, did you go before? I mean, you had a specific reason, but have movies just gotten out of the thing of you just kind of look on a weekend or Friday night and see what's happening? Yeah, I just haven't been in a long, long time. And it's not that I don't enjoy the theater experience, the movie theater. I do enjoy the theater experience also, but I also like ballets and operas. You're welcome. I'm a very well-rounded man. But the movie theater experience, it's just, I was so trained by my son that I'm not allowed to pick a movie. And then some of the movies get so long. I can't sit still that long. I mean, some of these are 2.5, 3.5 hours long. I'm like, I'm not do that unless you do an intermission. Let's all go to the lobby and have an intermission, but they don't do that. And so I don't enjoy that. But anyway, let me know just the question of the day. When was the last time you went to the movies? And based on your answers, I would guess I can tell how many of you are going to be watching the Oscars this upcoming weekend on the television, because I'm guessing it's very few. I'm guessing 0 to 5% of this audience, if I'm prognosticating, will watch the Oscars. It just doesn't seem like a thing that people with decent standards and people with things they need to accomplish in life besides waste time, it doesn't seem like that would be something that most of you would probably do. So I could be wrong. Question of the day: when was the last time you went to the movie theater and actually watched a movie? And it's been a while. Now, I'm trying to think, it seems like my son, no, I think that was the Iron Claw movie. I'm remembering that it was cold weather one day, and we had to walk out to the car. The car was a long ways away. But I don't think it was, I think that was one of the movies I aforementioned. I don't remember. I'm just asking the question, my friends, when was the last time you went to the movies? And I would love to hear exactly what you saw besides Melania. That's obviously some of you were driven from your hiatus from the theater. Our Lois says, before the Melania movie, we had not been in a very long time. Don't even remember what we saw last. Jim says, my wife brought me to see Song Sung Blue in January. That was the first theater movie since 2019. And I'm not, see, that's how out of the loop I am. I don't even know what that movie is about. I have to look that up. Is that Springsteen or something? I remember the name of it. I just can't remember. No, I'm great. I can go to a movie several times and I'm like a fishbowl. I think I saw this before. You just got 5 minutes. Oh, I forgot. I just don't store the movie stuff. All right, good to have you here. Let's go to first guest of the morning and keep commenting on the question of the day. When was the last time you went to the movie theater? And for some of you, it seems like it is a very, very, very long time ago. Let's bring into the program, if we may, Mr. Bruce DeTorres, friend of the show. He, if you might remember, is the Director of Communications for American Small Business League and the Don't Cheat Women Project. Don't Cheat Women Project that supports advocacy and work that elevate women-owned small businesses in federal contracting. Bruce DeTorres, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Jimmy. How are you?
I am very, very well. Let's dive into a couple of topics. First of all, question of the day, Bruce. You got to answer it. When was the last time you went to the movie theater, sir?
4 days ago, I saw the Elvis concert film. I highly recommended.
So one of those event things. It wasn't like a standard run-of-the-mill. It was, I forgot what they call it, kind of an event ticket. You watch it there.
No, actually, it's a theatrical release of a new compilation of old concert footage. It's probably, hopefully, in a theater near you. It's delightful.
All right. I see. That's how I'm out of touch. I don't know. I used to get all the emails, junk mails from all Fandango. Was that one of them? A movie for all. They used to get them all. I don't get the updates. I probably just don't open them. Let's dive into a couple of topics here, sir. First of all, small businesses have sued President Trump, and they're suing him over, hey, we're supposed to be free of these tariffs, and now we're not, and you put another fee on us. Talk about what's happening here. We had the Supreme Court say that the way he had put the tariffs out on businesses large and small was here. You couldn't do it that way. But he came back and immediately switched it up. And now there's big companies suing him, getting a refund. There's small companies suing the Trump administration. Help us understand what is happening with the small business community in the world of Donald John Trump.
Yes, I looked at that. I only saw a report of 2 small businesses that have sued along those lines to prevent the reimposition of the tariffs that the Supreme Court, February 20th, I think, declared as unconstitutional or illegal. And also 24 states are studying it, looking into it, complaining. I don't think they're suing. So there's continuing, Jimmy, debate about just the legality and the constitutionality of how President Trump has issued these under emergency authorization, okay, which raises a whole wonderful big debate people can have about, does any president use emergency powers a little too much? and the executive orders circumventing the straight according to Hoyle. Can Congress propose and pass laws, and then the president? That's where the president can review it and things like that. But at the bottom line, from small business perspective, Jimmy, is the concern of many, many, many small businesses about the cost of doing business, and especially the parts and pieces or whole items that they then resell that we must get from overseas, and how much those cost because of tariffs.
I was complaining yesterday on the program that so much of our business news media, Fox, CNBC, they focus very much on the micro. They're focusing, oh, look, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, oil is at 115. At 115, it's down to 80. And it's like these little bitty blips in the radar screen. Economy, whether it's small business trends, inflation, consumer price index, any of these fancy words that we hear, it's really not what happens on a Tuesday versus a Thursday. It's what's happening month over month, year over year. What's the trend line going? If you listen to the media, we established there's already just always a narrative. It's either they hate Trump, they love Trump, they're blinded by affections for Trump, or they're blinded by hatred for Trump. And everything has this narrative. If you look at the numbers, and oftentimes we're not allowed by the media to just look at the numbers, how are we doing, especially from the vantage point of Main Street in America, small businesses, in the economy? It's been over a year since the administration has termed again. Tuesday through Thursday is not a big deal, but last January through this April or this March is probably a good way to look at the trend. Where do you see we are at as far as Americans, consumers, small businesses, headed in the right direction, or we've stagnated?
I think stagnated. And around that, we can talk about the high cost of living. We can talk about so many Americans, 67%, 74%, living paycheck to paycheck. And the jobs that we lost last month, unfortunately, a dip of 92,000 jobs, and totally not in a good direction. Even all of 2025, America typically creates 1.5 million jobs every year. In 2025, Jimmy, I think America created less than 600,000 jobs. And yet, the big businesses, the Fortune 500, although they're traded on Wall Street, the stock market's rising, and it seems to be fueled by all the investment and government support for the investment into AI and the data centers. And small businesses are really left on their own. That's the bottom line. That's how we see things, that for any talk the federal government says of how they're helping small businesses, it's cover. It's a nice story, but really the federal government serves the 0.1% of businesses that are big businesses.
I was thinking of this the other day, driving down the road. I guess I had nothing better to think about. And I started thinking about this jobs report that I heard, that I guess on the upside of the jobs that had been created, or we used to pad the numbers by creating government jobs, which is kind of dangerous because it's costing me to create that job, and that's not helping Main Street. So the government job situation is much more tame under Donald Trump. However, and so you want to celebrate that and say, look, we're not padding the government. We're shrinking the size of the government. That's fine. But you just mentioned this. There's a lot of money, a lot of incentives that are going to, we've got to win the war on AI. We can't let China get ahead of AI. And there's incentives and government involvement, maybe not creating government jobs, but making me pay for all these big tech companies to develop their AI so that we can beat China. Do you see it the same way? We can put lipstick on a pig, but the government is still playing for the big companies here. And Main Street, I'm still paying for it, whether it's a government worker, pencil pushing in a bureaucracy, or whether it's a tech firm in California. I'm still paying for that. I don't like that.
Yes. And, folks who love you and love your show and love these kind of conversations, I believe are very concerned about what the government is doing that does not serve we the people. And we accuse the federal government of mostly working for the richest of the rich, those corporations and those banking institutions. My biggest concern about AI, Jimmy, is what people like Catherine Austin Fitts at Solari.com, SOLARI.com. What she's been warning us for a long, long time is it facilitates many other things surrounding Donald Trump, the tech oligarchs and billionaires, all their technology, hand in hand with our intelligence agencies, Jimmy, that have created this almost incomprehensibly huge and invasive surveillance capability. It almost couldn't get worse, but she warns, oh no, it could get much, much worse. The split second they, in quotes, implode the economy by natural disaster, by a false flag attack, by a war that gets out of control, and we have to replace the dollar. We'll be told we must replace the dollar with digital programmable currency. And all the unemployed, who will only increase with the deployment of AI, we will feel like we have no choice. And that will be a digital prison. We will be functioning in an outdoor prison where everything we do is tracked, traced, and monitored, but our purchasing ability will be programmable. Oh, you're late on your car insurance? Well, we're capping your food budget. We're capping the radius out of which your car can drive. There are white papers, there are revelations for years, Jimmy, indicating this is not conspiracy theory. This is what's in the works, and unfortunately surrounding Donald Trump and the people that he is aligned with, shoulder to shoulder with, these tech oligarchical billionaires. These might be the good old days. Maybe we haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, I've always said that, and I've thought about a Tesla recently, but then I'm like, I don't know. I don't want the government to say, you know what, Brother Lakey, you said something the other day that we didn't really appreciate, so let's just send a little signal out to your car, and it's not going to work. You have 3 days of timeout. I don't like that. So
that's and that's an extrapolation of what we saw done in the name of COVID and protecting us from mis and disinformation. Yes, they've pulled back, they've lightened the reins, they've trying to let us heal from that. But the cancelization, deplatforming, shadow banning, demonization that was done in the name of COVID is all road testing. What will the people put up with? The most egregious point is what happened in Canada. The Canadians who gave money to support the truckers who were protesting the draconian response to COVID, they were investigated digitally. They had their bank accounts compromised, blocked for a certain period of time. It's literally unbelievable what we face, and all governments eventually abuse their power. And that's why shows like this are invaluable to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah, I'm amazed that it's really convenient. I travel a lot, and it's convenient. Somehow, I don't think every airport has it because I travel out and then I travel back, but Denver has it. It's something called touchless TSA. And so I think what happens is, at least from the time I'm walking through the airport and then I get to the TSA booth, I put my phone in my pocket. I don't need an ID. I get the touchless line. There's usually a couple of us. I guess only few people. I was a pilot or what. I look at the camera and they say, "Welcome in, Mr. Lakey." I show nothing. It's just scanned my face and it's in the record. And I'm like, that's nice. But then you start to think, oh, Mr. Lakey, he pissed off the government. He said something bad, and all over the streets, my face is being scanned like I'm walking through the Denver airport, and suddenly here comes the van to take you off to the re-education camp. I mean, it's nice. That touchless stuff is very nice, and it's all Face ID, and I don't have to have a driver's license. I mean, it's all on file. They assume I have my driver's license with me. They don't even check it.
And they're going to sell that technology as beneficial to us, like, oh, just walking block to block to block down your street, your phone is going to tell the different stores around you that you're nearby. And as you look at your phone, you're going to see ads for the store on the next block, the next block, the next block. But you have to remember the movie Minority Report. And that kind of tracing by your face, we have to remember that one of the first things the government in Germany did in the 1930s to track and trace the people they didn't like was put a tattoo on their arm of their serial number. It's the exact, think of farms tagging each of their cattle. That's how they think of us and how they're treating us. And this will only accelerate, unfortunately, unless more of us say, no, thanks.
Yeah. I hate to break the news. I don't show my ID at the airport if I go through the touchless line. There's no, everybody, you got to have a real ID. No, you don't. You just got to have your facial scan, and that's what I get. And by the time I get there, I stand there for 5 seconds. Hello, Mr. Lakey, welcome back. And I'm like, oh, that's just so creepy. And everybody better pay attention. Let me switch a little bit back here. What do we need to do to make sure small businesses in America, you're the Small Business League, and you want people to buy here, build here, do what they can as a small business. And the American Small Business League stands up for small businesses. As the average person listening to our conversation, Bruce DeTorres, what should we be doing as individuals to make sure we're doing all we can as individuals to support the small businesses of America?
It's to know thyself. The classic advice at the Temple of Apollo, the Oracle of Delphi. The United States of America is nothing but a small business nation. And if folks go to our site, asbl.com, just read the homepage, or go to our other site, don'tcheatwomen.com, click and read through that to comprehend the power we have in our numbers if we would know who and what we are, and then we could ask for things that actually benefit us, which would be small businesses. So that's the bottom line foundation. Then above and beyond that, a particular thing, a nice string to pull or a door to go through is to read all that material on those sites and contact your congressman, contact your senators, contact the SBA, and contact the White House and say, hey, can we stop giving small business contracts to big businesses, please? The big businesses, Jimmy, they don't create new jobs with the billions of dollars in federal contracts that they get. Whereas if legitimate small businesses got the contracts that they're supposed to and that we're told that they get, but they don't, they would create a couple extra million new jobs every year. The whole economy would rise. I don't care about that, Bruce. I'm never going to apply for a federal contract. I clean garage, I fix garage doors. I cut hair. Wait a minute. When the companies in your community who could get federal contracts get them, they'll hire so many people. They all need haircuts. They need their gutters filled, cleaned. Their kids need ballet lessons. The whole economy would rise.
Yeah. There is some good news. To consumer confidence in February did show to be on the increase. Are you optimistic? It seems like some consumers are optimistic looking forward. What about Bruce DeTorres? Are you going to rain on the parade?
Yes and no. Yes, I'm going to rain on it because my study of recent reports like that showed that the consumer confidence was up for the small portion of Americans that are prosperous, and it was talking about their big ticket purchases. Yay for them. It's nice to be wealthy. Okay. But the rest of us, not so much, kind of paycheck and paycheck. And then big picture, Uncle Bruce says, yes, I'm ever optimistic because life is a creative realm. Our thoughts and intentions become things. All we have to do is develop a spiritual imagination and test the power of love. Let love be the only thing we want to feel and that we want to give. And remember, fear does one thing. It destroys everything. So every day's a new day to give it our best shot.
Bruce DeTorres, the American Small Business League, or Don't Cheat Women, both have websites, asbl.com or don'tcheatwomen.com. Two websites, very active, and for ways for people to get more information. Did I say it right?
You did, my friend. You're the best.
I appreciate you, Bruce DeTorres, asbl.com or don'tcheatwomen.com. Bruce DeTorres, spokesperson for that great organization, and always appreciate Bruce coming on the screen. Everybody stand by. Historian Richard C. Lyons joins us in just a bit. And also, aviation and travel expert Jay Ratliff shall be with us today. You don't want to miss that as we talk about aviation and travel, those long TSA lines at the airport. How many of you have been victimized by that? I'm glad I'm not traveling this week or last week, and it's been a week or so since I traveled. I've got some more stuff I've got to get done, but I'm holding off from the airports until we get this done. There's a question for you. Have you even heard, is the news media even reporting this? I've been so busy the last few days, I haven't watched a lot of news, but I got to ask you, when you watch the news, listen to the radio, is anybody talking about the DHS shutdown, partial shutdown, government shutdown affecting DHS and TSA? I find it interesting that such a dramatic thing is happening, and people are now getting to the airport 3 to 5 hours in advance just to assure. There was one airport, I forgot where she was at. She says, I was 3 hours and I just now got inside the building. They were winding outside for a couple of hours, and then she got in the building. At that point, you better have a real good reason to fly. But I just find it curious, and what would your estimation be as to why the media is not reporting it? Listen, if the media thought that this government shutdown would make Donald John Trump look bad, the media would be reporting it. If they thought that the TSA lines would make Donald John Trump look bad, they would be reporting it like nonstop. It'd be a 24-hour. They would cover it more than the Nancy Guthrie abduction. I mean, they would be on it. But I think that the fact that they're not on it, and the fact that you're not hearing a wall-to-wall coverage at every airport in America, media. I mean, I saw some, but I have not obsessed myself with the news the last few days. But let me ask you: do you think you're seeing it as much? How many of you, when I said that, you're like, "Oh, good thing I'm not flying. I forgot about that." I really think they'd be covering this more if there's something that they think that could either increase your ratings or increase your hatred of Donald Trump. And the fact that they're not reporting on this partial government shutdown, and you're not hearing more about Homeland Security being unfunded while we're fighting terrorists in Iran, and Homeland Security has been defunded by the Democrats. And while the time that we learned yesterday that there's drone threats, and they're warning California authorities to be careful of Iranian drone attacks in California, Oscar weekends, all the stuff that they're doing. And the media's not really reporting it from that Homeland Security angle. You know why? Because it doesn't make Donald Trump look bad. If they report it, it exposes the stupidity of the American Democrat / Communist Party. Same thing. If they report it, it shows that Chuck Schumer is a jackwagon. If they report it too much, they're going to make a lot of the Democrats look bad. Now, Ray says he's up in the Portland news. Local Portland news is covering it. Now, I haven't watched a lot of local news, and I think most people don't watch local news anymore. Is the media in your area, your local? That's a great question, Ray. Is the local media covering it more than the national media? Ray says, I see a lot on the local Portland news. I can't tell you the last time I watched a local newscast in Colorado or the Denver TV market. I can't tell you the last time I watched one of their news shows. You know, you got 9 News, which is as biased as MSNBC and the jackwagons that work there. I don't watch it. I can't tell you. I haven't studied the ratings, but I would guess local news ratings are plummeted based on where they were at the high maybe a decade ago or so. But maybe it's different. Maybe the local news stations are, but I think the audiences are quite slim on local news. I know the brief moments that I've scanned through some of the news channels, you might have a reporter out there interviewing, or they do some flash interviews with people saying, I waited 3 hours and I had to eat popcorn. And they do stuff like that. But a real deep dive as to why it's happening and to who's blaming who, they're just not diving into it, I don't think, as much as they could, because I don't think they can spin it to where, Republicans have passed the bill. Here it is. We hate ICE. We don't like ICE. We want ICE reform, so we're not going to let TSA workers not be there. And one of the reasons there's a shortage of TSA and the TSA lines are happening is because people are TSA workers like this. I got some income. You guys keep jerking around with my dollars in my bank account. And by the way, why would anybody want to work TSA anymore? I'm sure it's a great job if you know that every time Chuck Schumer gets a pimple on his butt or something, he's going to stop your pay. Why? And I have to say that if you're a TSA agent, you've got to be regretting it, going, oh, so every time a politician gets a wild political hair like Chuck Schumer decides to ingest some raw meat and his mind goes crazy, every time Chuck Schumer does that, I suffer at my dining room table. Think of that. Your TSA agents, I'm guessing most of them. I did know one guy, there's a really wealthy guy that went to work for TSA kind of instead of a Walgreens, Walmart greeter. Seriously. He was heading towards retirement, but he didn't know what he wanted to do. He was bored. And early on in the first formation, he decided to go to TSA class, a school or academy, and he became a TSA agent. I lost track of him, but he thought it was a cool thing. Rather than being a greeter at Walmart, he wanted to work at the TSA. And he retired really early. So I'm guessing there are some people, and I'm guessing most people that are TSA agents, I'm guessing they're just like you and I. They're people that, they live in situations that are not necessarily as luxurious as a Hollywood celebrity. They're out there just working class people doing the working class thing to put working class food on the table and get their 2-3 weeks of vacation a year. I'm guessing that's what happens. I'm guessing TSA agents are pretty much average folks out there. So think of you're an average folk and you're maybe got the job because you want to keep America safe. Maybe it just was a good paying job and you live near an airport. Whatever reason you're a TSA agent, and what have the politicians taught you in the last many months? That every time Chuck Schumer gets a pimple on his butt, his hemorrhoids flare up or whatever happens, then you as a TSA agent, you don't get to eat. You don't get to buy Christmas. Your bank account goes on hold and you're trying to fend off that. Why? Because some politician like Chuck Schumer decides he hates Donald Trump and Kristi Noem. That's what the left and politicians in Washington, D.C. all oftentimes think of the average person going to work. If they don't like somebody in Washington and they want to throw a political tantrum, the person that's going to suffer about it is the person on Main Street. And it's very, very, very sad. We'll talk to aviation travel expert Jay Ratliff here coming up on the program in just a bit as he joins us for the Thursday segment of the show. All right, great friend historian Richard C. Lyons is about to join us, but before he does, could I remind you about the great charity work that we do? Rivers Promise, it's right behind me on the board. It's on my hat. You see it across the bottom of the screen. If you don't know the story, you're new to the program. I started Rivers Promise a long time ago. I guess almost pushing 20 years, 15, 20 years ago. And it was a promise I made to my son when I adopted him from the beautiful African country of Rwanda. I tried to adopt him and a couple of others, and unfortunately was not able to get the others out of the country. And so I promised my son, whose name happens to be River, just kind of a private thing when he was a little kid. I said I'm going to take care of all of his little friends that I couldn't adopt because I did never want him to see a photo of his friends that were there and he's here that he grew up with, the early childhood 2-3-year-old friends, and go, what happened to that kid, Dad? And then I don't know, Dad. We got to know. I said I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. And sure enough, 15, 20 years later, we've taken care of so many. Thousands of children have been affected by what we do, from sending kids to school. Some of those kids that were older at the orphanage I adopted him from, they're now young men, young women, have their own families. They call me, they're orphans. They call me Dad. They call me Papa. One child brought his baby and said, look, it's your grandbaby. And I said, I'm not old enough for that. But that's how they consider me. And it's just a promise that I made. And we're still keeping that promise alive. And that orphanage was shut down long ago. We got all those kids into Rwandan adoptive homes, no longer institutionalized. And now we're working in a remote area for the last almost 10 years of forgotten kids, that a lot of these kids would be street boys, prostitutes. I mean, there's just no way to survive or just they'd starve. I mean, the malnutrition rate was exceedingly abundant when we got there. But we also know it's not just about feeding the bellies. We know that education is the ladder that a kid can use to climb from the pit of extreme poverty. And I've said that for a long time. So we provide education. For years, we sent all of our kids to other schools, and we decided several years ago, 5 years ago, to build our own school. And that's where we taught Legacy Christian Academy. You can learn more about Rivers Promise, my charity organization. 501c3, by the way, so it's all tax deductible. You can go to riverspromise.org. You can see the story, watch the movies. You can see videos of where my son was found as a newborn baby in a ditch in a rainstorm late at night. Umbilical cord scab was still in place. That's how young he was found. Miraculously survived, ended up in an orphanage, and boom, he's a American college student now. But honored to raise him, and he's my guy. So what can you do? A simple donation. Consider a donation today to Rivers Promise. Again, you can sponsor a kid, and I'll post up a link today to show you some of the great kids that are available for sponsorship. That's $65 a month. That child will write you if you want. Well, they'll write you anyway. You can write back to them, and you'll see that these kids, again, attend our school, and without us sending them to school, we have a lot of unsponsored kids in our school, and that causes problems is financially because they're not backed, but we have empty desks, so we don't want to do that. Also, just food. If you want to feed, we can feed a kid 2 meals a day for a month for 30 days for about $30, about $1 a day. And so whether you want to sponsor an individual kid or just give to the food fund, we feed our kids 2 meals a day at our school. I want you to go to the website. Enough of that. You've got the history there. It's all documented on the website. Riverspromise.org, 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 and make sure you tell us on the donation form if you get a chance. Hey, I'm a listener, I'm a viewer. If you mail a check in, there's an address there. A lot of you do like to mail checks in, and I appreciate that as well. So there's hey, let's put a note in there. I watch the Lakey Unleashed show. Hey, Jimmy, listen to you every week or once a month or whatever. And just always fun to hear from you. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. You don't have to identify yourself, but we'd love to hear how you heard about us to give a donation. Go do it. And I'll post on social media a little bit a way that you can sponsor a direct kit if you want to do that. All right, here we go. Richard C. Lyons is our next guest of the morning. Historian extraordinaire, author extraordinaire, let's just say deep thinker extraordinaire. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard C. Lyons, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
Oh, thanks, Jimmy. Always a pleasure to be here.
I see a book over your shoulder that we might want to talk about. It's not a book that I remember us maybe talking about before, but what's there over your left shoulder, my friend?
Oh, it's a book I wrote some years ago about a perpetual problem we're living through right now. It's called "But by the Chance of War," and it's a multi-part drama beginning with the classical era and the fall of an Indian empire few people know, and that's the Gupta Empire. The Huns overthrew them as Attila was fighting in Europe and on the Bosphorus. His cousins, the White Ephthalites, were bringing down the Gupta Empire in India. And it goes from there. What it does is follow the technology of war. And it goes from there, and it goes to colonial America, then to World War I, then prophetically to the Middle East, where we're seeing what we're seeing today. And it was in the hope of what you saw actually at the UN in the last couple of days, when 135 countries, unprecedented, voted to condemn Iran for just scatter shooting its missiles around the Arabian Peninsula and against shipping in the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, etc. So what it argues for is that the only way to counter the ever-mounting abilities of technology is to gather together around, human principles of non-aggression.
Yeah. The Voice of Richard C. Lyons, the book we normally lead with, that's one of his past books, is his current series, the author of the DNA of Democracy and Shadows of the Acropolis, the DNA of Democracy. He's an American poet, and he uses his writings in those books as a series of essays, the DNA of Democracy, to look at our democracy we live in, kind of a historical basis and where we could be headed and what we better be aware of. Richard C. Lyons is my guest. Richard, from the perspective of the books you've written and the history perspective that you bring, what do you see happening? I know you mentioned this unprecedented condemnation of Iran. Even some of Iran's strategy was that if we shoot missiles at you, you're going to blame America. They're blaming Iran. They're isolating themselves further. Just give me your perspective on what we're watching. Is this exactly how we thought it would go? And just your perspective of where Iran will settle once the bullets and eventually run out of something to stop bombing. Eventually, eventually everybody that's firing from a bunker is dead. And where do you see this thing going?
No, and that's a good thing. We're actually decreasing their munitions every time they fire a missile. We destroy a launcher. So that's the delivery system. We need to take those out too. The delivery systems they have. So every time they launch now, we take something out. What is unprecedented, Jimmy, if I may, is that, and it began in Trump's first term, and that was the Abraham Accords, where there was a rapprochement between the Arab Gulf states and Israel and the United States. And that's what the Abraham Accords are all about. Can we have a relationship between a Muslim country and Israel? And so that started with, and Saudi Arabia was right about to sign on to the Abraham Accords when strategically Iran funded Hamas's invasion of Israel and its killing of 1,300 Jews and all that story of October 7th. So this is another chapter in the virtue of the Abraham Accords and how those countries are coming together on the side of Israel rather than a terrorist Iran. For decades, for almost 5 decades now, The great difficulty in eradicating the terrorism of Iran was that it was thought that a majority of the Arab states would side with Iran and attack American interest and Israeli interests, right? Overnight. They would all get together on the side of Iran. What this vote, the UN has produced, is a vote against Iran and with the United States and with, humanitarian interests. Not, why can't we be citizens of states that can coexist and have peace between us in a non-aggression pact? Why do we have to placate or appease a terrorist state, right? Because we fear that other states will attack us. So that's where we're at now. And it's a better place than we were as short ago as 2 weeks ago.
Let me ask you a question. I go back to WW2, and I think of the people in Germany that were complicit in the Nazi genocide of the Jews and all that happened. But obviously, Germany had to get its feet back on the ground, and somehow not everyone that fought for the Nazi army was going to go to jail or PO. They repent, drop your arms, and we're going to change directions as a nation. And somehow that country survived. Are there still probably some Nazis and mindsets in the army immediately? Yes, but they died down, they tamped out, they were squeezed away. I'm looking at these radicals that have been fighting in the Iranian military, the police they have there. I'm watching these protesters in the streets that have been radicalized with the same fervor that maybe Nazis were for killing the Jews. They're wanting to kill the little Satan and the great Satan. But I think they're a little bit different in that for them, this is a religious experience. For them, this is a way to eternity. Is there going to be a way for this radical thought pattern in Iran to be tamped down, a loose, weird comparison, the same way that the Nazi fervor was tamped down after WW2? Because you're dealing with two different mindsets.
That is a perfect question. In that, the problem with Iran right now is that you have 90 million people, but of the 90 million, the 200,000 that are hardcore IRGC affiliates, they're the ones with the guns, right? And this is what happens to a population that's unarmed. If ever you want to know what the Second Amendment is about, it's about having an armed citizenry so you don't have to be oppressed by a minority. So you have a minority that are these religious, embedded in religious fervor. Also, they are 200,000 people that don't have a future without the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be very interesting because the Arab Spring and other countries produce different results. In Egypt, for example, when the Arab Spring came, so you had parades for freedom, just like in Iran. But after the parades for freedom, the institutions took effect. That is the Orthodox Islamic Brotherhood and the military. They took over, and so the real forces for freedom did not come to the top of society. So we've seen this occur in Iran, and what has to occur is the demilitarization of the IRGC to the point that these wellsprings for democracy, wellsprings for free enterprise and international trade, regularization internationally of the country, those have to come uppermost in society. That's what the hope is, that those forces, those moderate, middle class, really, value people, are those who are able to form a new society, not some new strong man, some new strong cleric who will further oppress and literally be at war with their own people, as the government there has been for 50 years, and at war with the world. I mean, let's face it. We have been at war with this country for almost 50 years.
Yeah.
Trump is trying to end it, actually, not begin it.
Yeah, that amazes me. Looking back historically, much as you love Reagan, I don't think there was ever any great retaliation of the hostages that were held for over 400 days. USS Cole, that one got lost in the transition between Clinton and Bush. These people have been terrorizing and murdering Americans for 47 plus years, and the can has always been kicked down the road. I'll go back to 1979. One of the reasons the radicals took over Iran is they did not like this familial the crown prince going to take over. This family, this royalty, they wanted God to pick the ruler, not the lineage of some royal blue blood there. And now, 47 years later, you find out that Khamenei, or Khamenei, I think they like to say his name, Khamenei's son has been chosen. So the whole damn thing is a hypocrisy based on what the justification.
I hadn't thought about that. That's true.
Yeah, the thing they tried to get rid of with 1979, that this guy was picking his son and his family, and now we got a family business here, a family business of terrorists.
Yeah, and it's really marketing, isn't it, Jimmy? They want to have a name out there that they can market and say, no, we're going to survive. You better know we're going to survive under the sun. So, keep your mouth shut, because we're going to get through this. But I don't think they will.
Yeah. Do you think that the son of exiled Shah of Iran, who wants to be the new leader, is there a chance that he's going to return there? I'm not sure, but he definitely wants to.
I'm not sure either, because there's going to be opposition to him. His rallying cry, and I very much appreciate it, is he wants to have just a temporary position on the way to stabilizing the country for 2 years, and then holding elections which bring in every sector of society, which is what you need. You know what I mean? It's what you need to have a stable peace and a common law. So that's what he is enunciating. That Trump has not given him any endorsement. He's waiting to see what other persons, and I think the CIA will be great at doing this. What other persons in Iran would bring the kind of credibility necessary to them being in a position to consolidate the society?
Yeah. And I think they've killed somebody at the top. The CIA is going, what's his name?
Yeah, who's left?
who's left there? Let me ask you back real quick before we have to go. Richard C. Lyons, author of the DNA of Democracy, The Shadows of the Acropolis, the DNA of Democracy series. As you watch this thing, you've got a lot of even people that are allied with President Trump saying this is a foreign entanglement. We cannot be involved in this. It's not an immediate threat. Almost like right as they put their finger on the trigger, we can get involved. But until then, we're not getting involved. So a lot of even conflict on President Trump's own political party here. When you look at this through the DNA of democracy, the shadows of the Acropolis, is there anything here that you say, warning, the way we act here is going to really go against what helps a democracy have good DNA, or this is going to start bringing you to your end if we continue this foreign entanglement? Is there any kind of a warning sign that you see here, or is this healthy for a free country like ourselves to get involved in a place like Iran?
Well, we have to do better than we did in Iraq, where we, just told the military, you can go home with your weapons. And then they became the insurgency, the opposition. We can do, I think, diplomatically and economically with influencing what occurs there while keeping back a little bit. I think we need to have boots on the ground, principally for only one thing. We have to get to their uranium storage points and take out the enriched plutonium. That has to happen, whether it's an international group or the United States alone. That has to happen. This thing has to be defanged and declawed entirely. And I thought it really ironic, Jimmy, that the first thing the negotiators said for Iran when they were meeting with Witikoff, our representative, was, we have enough enriched uranium to make it to a bomb in 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, if that wasn't the pulling of a trigger that they didn't expect, they thought we'd back off like Obama, like everybody else. That was what pulled the trigger when they said in 1 week or 10 days, we can have a deliverable nuclear weapon. From that point on, we would never be able to go in there because they would say, we're going to push the button on Israel and Israel's going to disappear. Yeah. So that was really what set this off.
Richard C. Lyons, I see the book behind you, but By Chance of War. That's an older book of yours. The current ones are The DNA of Democracy, Shadows of the Acropolis, DNA of Democracy. If folks want to follow Richard C. Lyons and or get any of your books, where do they go, sir?
Go to richardclyons.com, Jimmy, or request books at any retail outlet or at Amazon, of course.
RichardCLyons.com. Richard, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I appreciate the conversation, and we'll do it again soon, I hope. But thank you for coming on today. RichardCLyons.com, a historian extraordinaire, and puts it all in great perspective with that DNA of Democracy series at RichardCLyons.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just mentioned Rivers Promise a bit ago, and somebody asked me yesterday, they said, when are you going back? And I said, I honestly don't know. I've been so busy, and I've got so many different things on my calendar right now. I'm guessing it's going to be June before I'm back there, which will be a record time that I have not been there. I was there in November, December, and normally I would have been there in February again, but I just haven't made it. So, and by the way, if you're ever interested in going to Africa with us, send an email to you can send it info@JimmyLakey.com or info@Rivers Promise. I take a couple of public trips a year, which means we're willing to have tag-alongs. So a lot of times I'm just going over there on my own and keep my own schedule, and it's fast-paced. It's not meant for we don't build the schedule there for tourists or to kind of show you around. It's all business, but we do some touring trips, if you will. And if you ever have a dream to go to Africa, we can do it probably a heck of a lot cheaper than some of your tour agencies, especially if you want to go see Rwanda. So anyway, info@Rivers Promise, and don't forget those donations today. info@riverspromise.com if you want to send us a note, or donate riverspromise.org. All right, it's stories coming in every day about the hassles and the pain of traveling. Saw some interviews. I've read some stories about people getting to get to the airport. So one lady said, I probably should have gotten here 5 hours earlier because of the partial government shutdown and the defunding of TSA agent salaries. Ladies and gentlemen, making sense of all things aviation and travel. You know his name well. Say it with me. Welcome to the stage, Jay Ratliff. Jay Ratliff, good morning, sir. How are you?
Pleasant good morning. I'm doing well, although I got a email from one of my students that was apologizing that he wasn't going faster. And he went on to say that on January 22nd, he died. And they spent 10 minutes bringing him back. He's getting a heart pump installed. And he's worried about apologizing that he's not going faster as a student. I told him, please take your time and relax. It keeps things in perspective. And, I was listening to you talk about those Africa trips, and I was trying to remember how many years you've been going back and forth. And I guess those will be two things on my list. Attend the golf outing and zip to Africa with you once on those trips. And I bet they are hit the ground running trips when you're over there.
Yeah, it's a hoot. I miss it so much. I was talking to producer Chad. Somebody asked me, I said, God, I miss being over there. I would live there part-time if it worked out economically for me, but I still have things I have to do here. I still may do that one day. All right, let's talk about the airports. TSA, it's not getting any better. This pisses me off, Jay. If you're a person, an average working folks, just trying to put food on the table, you got a TSA job, and when a politician in Washington, D.C. gets a pimple on their butt, they don't feed you and your family because they're in a political tantrum in D.C. These poor TSA agents should get hazard pay for putting up with these idiot politicians.
I mean, and anybody that is jumping all over their case. My question is, how long can we go without a paycheck? They were supposed to get a paycheck last Wednesday. A week ago yesterday, did not. And they're government employees. They don't make a ton of money. They've got good benefits. But, Jimmy, I mean, the idea that you got to put food on the table, you have bills to pay. What are you going to do? And just like the air traffic controllers before, when they weren't getting paid on the last shutdown, you've got people saying, look, I'm going to take a job where I can feed my family, try to create some money versus working for free or working for a postponed paycheck that I have no idea when it's going to come. And when you watch the news, it's all Iran. Very, very little seems to be discussed about the partial government shutdown. And I suspect a lot of people outside of those that are in our audience and others totally forget the fact that you've got the Department of Homeland Security, important, certain entity there. And you've got the TSA agents as well that are not getting paid. And I mean, part of this is part of national security, and the idea that it's being used as a political volleyball, football, what have you, is just, to me, unforgivable. And when you've got the Democrats, which are the ones right now dragging their feet, it's frustrating. But certainly for those that are starting to travel now for spring break, you've got more and more people going to the airports, and we've got a shrinking number of TSA employees that are there to screen bags, and that's creating all kinds of problems. And It's going to continue to get worse until something's done. The idea that I've got a 90-minute flight, but I've got to get to the airport 4 hours early. What? Are you kidding me? But that's what we're seeing at some airports around the country.
Yeah. You sent me so many great stories, and I want to respect your time. So I picked a couple of them to hit through. One of those is kind of a theme, great ways to get kicked off an airplane. There's two stories you sent me. One is a guy, they forced an emergency landing because a guy was praying aboard a Southwest Airlines flight. And then you have another one, which I love to see this one. A lady was a passenger. I don't know if it was a lady, it says her phone, was playing a video on her phone on a loudspeaker, and she wouldn't plug in the headphones. And so the one guy's praying, well, let's land this puppy, and she won't turn her damn speaker down. Let's land this puppy. Great ways to get kicked off a flight if you don't behave yourself.
Yeah, the first one was a flight that was en route from New York to Fort Lauderdale. And this man, every 10 minutes, his phone was going off and he was praying in a foreign language, seemed nervous, kept asking where his bag was. And passengers were getting a little bit concerned, notified flight attendants. They were growing concerned. They notified the captain and pilot in command, the captain, and captain said, we're going to divert. And they landed in Atlanta. Law enforcement came on, removed the individual. They found it wasn't a security threat, but the way he was acting was causing a concern. And as a result, they erred on the side of caution, landed the plane. And I totally get that. The other flight on American Airlines was still at the gate, and they're in the boarding process. And this lady's blaring her phone. She had a little extra to drink. I'll add that in there. Alcohol was a factor, surprise. And when the flight attendant came by and just asked her to please use your headphones, turn it down, whatever, she refused not once but twice. The passenger got so mad, if you watch the video that went viral, she's demanding that they contact the police.
Wow.
Which the flight attendant say, okay. And here comes law enforcement. The sheriff's aboard the flight saying, they're asking that you get off the plane. And she said, all I'm doing is expressing my views. Am I not allowed to do that? And the law enforcement officer said, absolutely, but you're going to do it from the jet bridge, not the airplane. So we've seen United, as we talked about last week, and now American Airlines is saying, look, when you have people that are going to be this inconsiderate, especially if you're at the gate, they're going to kick you off the plane. Now, if you are in the air doing this, I don't expect that they're going to make a diversion somewhere and land that airplane where it's going to cost them $20,000. But I guarantee you, when you get to your destination, they'll probably say, excuse me, we just want to let you know, passenger, your connecting flight you're not on. We've canceled your reservation. You're not going to fly us anymore. Good luck at getting to your destination, that's for sure. Yeah. Because we're not going to be able to assist you. And it's all because you're not abiding by the instructions of a uniformed flight crew member, which, by the way, is a PS felony. By the way, please don't do it. But I just wish we could get this mandated at, I don't know, Walmart. And you're shopping for groceries because you've got somebody coming by, blaring on their phone. It's on speaker. You're hearing both sides of the conversation. Yeah. And I look at these people, and Jimmy, I guess I should just stop them and say, excuse me, I could care less about what you're talking about. Could you please take it off of speaker? Yeah. But I don't. I just look at them like, oh, I'm so glad I wasn't raised that way. But Sherry and I, my wife and I, are at dinner. 5 tables behind us. You hear somebody's speaker video phone that's blaring. And you're just thinking, can I not even enjoy a nice, quiet, what I would hope to be a romantic dinner with my wife, and somebody's back there blaring away? But yes, hats off to American and United for trying to mandate some civility.
All right, one more quick question before we see what it's like to fly by the country. I bundled 2 more stories. You sent me the story. United flight attendants are looking for a good deal. They're getting close to a union deal. Yes. But American Airlines is firing flight attendants at a faster rate than ever. So the tale of 2 airlines, United and American.
United flight attendants have not had a contract for 6 years. They've been trying to get a new contract for 5. And it looks like they're getting close to a deal that may be so sweet that it kind of elevates the bar for the rest of the industry as far as flight attendants. And you're right, they should get paid hazard pay. So I am thrilled that this hopefully deal is going to get hammered out soon. American Airlines is firing a lot of their flight attendants right now. The reason for that is they have, when you're hired at a whopping, $28,000, $30,000 a year, the deal is you're on reserve, you're on the bench. And when we have somebody call in sick, you've got to be there to take their spot. Everybody does that when you're hired as a flight attendant. The deal is you have to be within the airport. You have to be within 2 hours. You have to live within 2 hours so you can get there. But a lot of them are saying, look, I don't get paid very much. It's too expensive to live around here. So I'm going to have a home in another city. Well, the problem is if you do, you can't fly in and be available for a last minute substitution. And Americans having a lot of these people that when they're called in off of reserve, they're calling it sick. And Americans are saying, it's part of the deal that you're available, because if not, we could have a flight that's canceled. That costs us money. The deal is you're ready to go. They're not. So they're firing them, right? And of course, the flight attendants get fired or throwing a fit saying you can't do that. Yes, you can, because that was part of the employment contract that you agreed to at the time you were hired. We're not changing our rules just because it's not convenient for you. And a lot of these flight attendants, they'll have what's called a crash pad where 8 or 10 of them will share a small little apartment because with, mattresses on the floor or what have you, because they just come and go because it is incredibly expensive to live at some of these cities. But Americans saying if you're not available, we're going to give you the heave-ho.
Oh, maybe they go apply at United. They're getting good deals over there.
That'd be a place to go.
What's it like flying about the country today, sir?
Draw a line from Houston up towards the Northeast, all kinds of problems. Houston, Atlanta, Charlotte, Philadelphia, D.C., soon to be New York and Boston. Weather-related delays in excess of an hour that's causing a bunch of headaches. So keep a lot of patience packed if you're headed in that direction. And yes, by the way, get to the airport unbelievably early because of the TSA issue we've got going on.
High wind warnings in Colorado if you're heading to Denver International. Could be 60, 70 miles per hour at times. That could cause some flight problems. Or
and cancellations at that speed. You're absolutely right.
Or bring your own barf bag, even if it's a little lower. You might need that because there's going to be some turbulence, as there always is coming into Denver. Jay Ratliff, always appreciate you, my friend. JRatliff.com, day trade expert as well. When he mentions his student, apologizing for taking the courses slow. Jay teaches a spectacular course in day trading, and you can check it out, jratliff.com. JRatliff, R-A-T-L-A-F-F. He's on as many radio, media, television stations regarding his stock market expertise as he has travel, but he's years in the travel industry and always a great guest to have on the show, jratliff.com. But good. You know what tomorrow is? It's Friday. Friday the 13th, 2 in a row. We got another Friday the 13th. It's also the day that Sherry Cree will be on the program, and you don't want to miss that. Sherry just gives some practical advice, insights onto real estate, selling, just whatever the question is. If you have questions, by the way, and you'd like to ask Sherry, we can talk about it on the show. Send me an email, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com, because Sherry and I will touch base this afternoon regarding some topics of conversation for tomorrow. So if you've got something that you'd like to hear Sherry talk about from a real estate perspective, feel free to send that to us, info@jimmylakey.com. Same thing with Jay Ratliff. If you want to talk to Jay, have a question for him, we'd love to have you. Send those to us in advance so we can be prepared. I mean, if they flash on the screen, we try to get to them, but sometimes that doesn't work out. Info@jimmylakey.com. Sherry Cree on the program tomorrow. She's such a great asset to our program, great supporter. First of all, you owe it to yourself and your finances and your pocketbook and your generational bank account and projections to call Sherry if you're contemplating real estate, selling or buying. You really do owe it to yourself. That again, she approaches every transaction, everything she does. You know what? If I do right with his family and we work together, this could be something that creates generational wealth for them. It's not just giving them an extra bedroom. It's not just giving them a better lawn or a smaller lawn, whatever. This is generational wealth. This is something that can set you up to retirement, can set your kids up, just playing the real estate game, whether it's that house. I mean, think of the progression of your life, and it's amazing that when you focus on things with how does this leave a legacy, it changes everything. And Sherry wants to help you kind of focus in that way. Yeah, she'll talk about the selling windows, the buying windows, the selling windows. It becomes a buyer's market. It becomes a seller's market. So if you're going to buy or sell, you want her to help you get positioned the right point of that market. And sometimes that means speed up. Sometimes that means slow down. But you have a schedule, and sometimes you can't work around that schedule. You've got to relocate. You have something that's come up, and you need to sell, you need to buy. Listen, all of these idiosyncrasies and all these intricacies, Sherry can help you navigate. Again, most realtors in America, 70% or so, did not do any transactions in 2025. You know what that means? They have a piece of paper that says they're licensed, and it doesn't mean they have any practice at doing it. Okay, that they're like Colin Kaepernick on the sideline. They can say they have their NFL Players Association membership. This is a great example, but it doesn't mean they've been on the field in a while. They're not game ready. Sherry comes to you game ready. She's been in the field. She had transactions, many last year. And she's going to have many, many, many this year, and hopefully they're going to be one of yours. Buyers or sellers, doesn't matter. I-25 corridor of Colorado, Interstate 25. Owe it to yourself to at least talk to her, interview her as one of your top 3 realtors and find out where she fits in and if it's a great fit for you. And by the way, if it's you're in an area or something she thinks there's a better fit for you, she's happy to give you a free referral. Even if you're out of state right now going, gosh, I wish Sherry was in my neighborhood. Listen, she'll give you a free referral. She's got a referral network that's phenomenal. You won't meet you won't meet, I don't think you'll find a better scenario. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. And just don't forget, we talk about charity, you're touched by what we do. It takes a special person to do the stuff you do with Rivers Promise. Sherry is there for a ribbon cutting of Legacy Christian Academy. She's generosity is what her and her husband focus on so often, and she gives a portion of her proceeds of every transaction to a charity of your choice. You got to talk to her. You really do. If you're going to sell or buy a home and you don't talk to Sherry, at least have a conversation, I don't think you're that smart. I mean that sincerely. You got to have a conversation. And again, I know somebody handed you a business card or mama used this. This is your neighbor. You got to use him. Listen, this is generational wealth you're talking about. You owe it to yourself. You don't owe a brother-in-law any favors. You got to do what's best for you and your family. And Sherry, I believe, can be in contention depending on what you want, what you need. Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. If I do my hands that much too much more, I'm going to feel like Gavin Newsom. Homeswithsherry.com. You're welcome. And you'll thank me for that. I promise you, you will. A couple of more things on Iran, and just start thinking about this. As much as we love Ronald Wilson Reagan, the Gipper, you think, and I haven't studied, I was too small at the time. Why is it that we allowed the hostages to get released before we and never did anything about it? Jim puts up a great point. It's right on the screen. I'll read it. Long before the USS Cole, don't forget, there was the Beirut Marine Barracks bombing, the Tom Sutherland kidnaps, all backed and funded by Iran. Then Jim follows up Tom Sutherland and Terry Anderson. Listen, Iran has been a criminal enterprise of gangster thugs, terrorists motivated by Satan himself, in my opinion, for a long time. And we have never retaliated, really. The Lebanon bombings, the barracks, the USS Cole, the hostages. We got to the time of Barry Hussein Obama. He just started sending them money, say, maybe if we give them money, they'll shut up and stop it. They didn't. And then Poopy Pants Joe Biden got there and said, let's give them a few billion more dollars and maybe they'll do it. And they sent old horse-faced John Kerry over there, and they would scream at the table every day, death to America. And all John Kerry would say is, I married a rich woman. That's all he's incompetent boob that he is. Listen, we're finally stopping this. 47 years of terror the Iranians have brought upon us. And I just find it amazing that after 5 days, 10 days, 12 days now of war and battles there, you have pundits and or politicians, because of their hatred for Donald Trump, rather than the greater perspective of what's best for America. It's a defeat. It's a defeat. You're idiots. You're absolute idiots. And I'm telling you, there are people, Republicans as well. I used to like Thomas Massey. I think Thomas Massey has lost all credibility when it comes to being a principled conservative. I'm thinking it's more and more about the same thing with Rand Paul. I mean, I just, to not be able to see this from a perspective of, there's some things that are a little bit more nuanced, and I don't like foreign entanglements. And George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Barry Hussein Obama, they all screwed up royally in Afghanistan and Iraq and getting us in that long entanglement. So I understand we're all jaded and we have that paradigm and that lens, and we don't want any part of that crap again. I get it. But I also get, on the balance, the flip side is that 47 years of terror and 47, as a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff we had to do in Afghanistan and Iraq, had we ever dealt with Iran properly many years ago, you have to ask if some of that would have been tamped down. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that I think you've got to put in perspective. And again, some of these narratives, again, you can say you disagree with the thing, but to declare that we're losing and declare that we're not succeeding is just stupid. And again, some people want to see Donald Trump fail more than they want to see America succeed. All right, I got lots of things on the guest on the list I never got to today, which is, I guess, good. It's always good to come to the show over prepared than under prepared. Lots of things here that I'd like to get to. We'll put them off till tomorrow. It's time for the stolen meme section of the show, but we're going to wrap it up right after that. But I would appreciate it. Make sure those donations come in. We appreciate that for Rivers Promise, riverspromise.org. Looking to hear from you today. We are again about 8 days away from having to send another a lot of money over there for food and education for the kids at Legacy Christian Academy. And as I said, March, January, February, March, a little bit of April is some of our tightest and most lean months. And any help you can give is greatly appreciated. And literally what you give today is going to help a kid by tomorrow. I mean, we'll get it there. 8 days, we'd send thousands of dollars about the 20th of the month. But I send throughout the month, especially when we didn't meet our needs before. So I've already sent a couple of times this month because we were short in February. Anything you can do, great. We appreciate it. Make a donation today, riverspromise.org. Stolen memes section of the show. We go around the internet and we scrape the stuff off the bottoms of shoes everywhere to find memes and funny things that illustrate absurdity and political stupidity. You ready? Let's do it. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Trans virgin women are women. Yeah, that's what they're telling him. He gets up there. It's a trans woman and a virgin. You know, that means that's a man. No, it's a woman. Don't worry. How many? These are all women. They're all virgins. Enjoy. Here's your first 72. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from no one knows. The U.S. has decimated Iran's military so much that the French now feel safe enough to send in the warships. The French. Well, let's send in some warships, right? They've decimated them, right? Oh, yeah, we'll go now. We'll go. Thank you. Brave. The French are so brave. Schumer warns SAVE Act would allow ICE to kick millions off the voter rolls. Well, wouldn't that mean they're not citizens? Yeah, Schumer did say that. He said, they're going to kick people off the voter rolls. Only going to kick people off the voter rolls, Chuck. You disgraceful human being. Only going to kick them off the voter rolls if they're not U.S. citizens, Chucky. Jeez, what a disgusting. Round and round the globe we go, where sometimes you just feel like I'm throwing up. Iran cancels plan to attack California after seeing Gavin Newsom already destroyed it. There's all those drones are going. They warned us that the Iranian drones could hit California. Be careful of it. Could be dangerous. And then Iran's like, yeah, Gavin's doing a good job. We can save these drones for somewhere else. Gavin's destroying that cesspool of a state. He used to live there. Sad, beautiful state. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. No, I do not pay attention to beer and gas prices. What the F am I going to do? Walk and be sober? I don't know whose PPV that is. You know, personal point of view right there, the perspective. That could be producer Chad. Although he's not much of a beer guy. Yeah, but you drink enough, those gas prices don't look so bad. If you see guys out with the gas pump drinking, that's what they're just numbing their pain. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. There we go. Look at that photo. And then the sign holding up a liberal. And the caption is just simply, yeah, the sign's not necessary. You just look at that photo and you go, yep, they didn't vote for Donald Trump. Kamala fans right there. You just look. You don't have to hold it up. Some things you don't need to identify with a sign. I don't know what the thing around the mouth. I don't get. Some of you do know what that is. I don't. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. My wife caught me sucking in my stomach while standing on the scales. And she says, that's not going to help you, fat boy, she replied. I said, actually, it does. It's the only way I can see the numbers on the scale, you smart arse. Can you hear that? Don't suck your stomach in. It's not going to help you on the scale. Yeah, it is. I can't see the numbers without it. Yeah. That's funny. Right around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from? No, we're out. China. I said, no more memes for you. The soup Nazis and the meme Nazis have shut us down. All right. It's been a pleasure, my friends. Thanks for being a part of the show. Tomorrow's Friday. And good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. You will be here with us tomorrow. A lot of stories that I have left over. Rush used to say F Chuck. Is that what he said? It's called Chuck Schumer? F Chuck Schumer? Is that an initial or is that a verb? I don't know. I haven't looked up the thing. Limbaugh gave all sorts of good nicknames. Sometimes I give a nickname and say, man, I wish I was good at giving a nickname as Rush was. Yeah. And I sometimes listen to the radio and say, I wish there were people on the radio as good as Rush was. Doesn't happen anymore, does it? No. It's a cesspool. I used to scan. I can't do it. I find myself on the music stations. I should film me in the car. I'm like, oh, narcissist, stupid comment, know it all, F it, F him. And then I'm playing the country music or playing the Christian music as well. Sometimes I do the top 40 as well. In classical, I do some classical. I like that as well. So I'm well-rounded, except when it comes to the AM. I'm like, that's bullcrap. We miss him. But if that's how he meant Chuck Todd, F Chuck Todd, I say the same thing, F Chuck Todd. No, that's Chuck Todd, Chuck Schumer. Todd's an NBC guy. I thought it was F Chuck Todd. Or was it F Chuck Schumer? It was Chuck somebody, you F Chuck somebody. And I think it was Chuck Todd. Okay, somebody do your Limbaugh research. We'll check in that tomorrow. Did Limbaugh call it F Chuck Schumer or F Chuck Todd? I think it was Chuck Todd. I could be wrong. I've been wrong twice before. Yeah. All right. I got to go. I'm reading comments coming in. Nothing else worth reading here, I don't think. Arloa does say, I think our Thomas Massey has lost his mind. I don't know what happened with him. I think what happened is a little bit of narcissism. You start getting media attention. You probably find that real sliver of a lane and you start getting donations. As a matter of fact, Thomas Massey, the rumors are, and the reports are, he's getting a lot of re-election money. He's well-funded now by Democrats. So you get that. And then you also get a little Trump derangement syndrome. Derangement syndrome, and it all goes downhill, Arloa. It all goes downhill. All right, I'll research. I think it's F. Chuck Schumer. Yeah, I agree, Arloa. I said the same thing. Rand Paul, Thomas Massey. There's something out in Kentucky. I mean, you think about that. I don't know if it's the inbreeding. Did I say that out loud? I mean, these are the people that kept Mitch McConnell in office for all those years. We got to get some people from Kentucky to listen to the show and tell us what the hell's wrong with your state. Okay, it's a jacked up state. Yeah, you look at like a governor. You would like Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul. What the? It's Kentucky. There's something in the water or in the gene pool. I'm not exactly sure. Best thing to come out of Kentucky in recent memory seems to be Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now I'm hungry. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Ice knows me as Jaime Lagos. Until we meet again tomorrow. Peace. I'm out of here.